Patriotism is not just a feeling, it's an action that uplifts a nation. True patriotism is when you love your country more than you hate its enemies. Patriotism is the dedication to preserving the best of a nation and striving to improve the rest. Loving your country means holding it to its highest ideals and working to realize them. Patriotism is the courage to defend what is right, even when it is not popular. A patriot sees the flaws in their country and works tirelessly to correct them. Patriotism is the heart's commitment to the nation's soul. True patriotism lies in the willingness to challenge and change for the betterment of all. Patriotism is not about blind loyalty but about a deep and abiding love for your country's values. The truest form of patriotism is to speak out against injustice in your homeland. Patriotism is a bond that unites a nation's people in common cause and common care. Being patriotic means celebrating the diversity that makes our nation strong. Patriotism is love in action for the country we call home. A patriot's duty is to question, to listen, and to act. Patriotism is the steadfast belief that a nation can always do better. To be patriotic is to be an active participant in your nation's future. Patriotism is the art of balancing pride with humility and action with reflection. Loyalty to country begins with loyalty to its people. Patriotism means fighting for freedom, not just celebrating it. The heart of patriotism beats in the chest of those who serve others. True patriotism demands sacrifice for the common good. Patriotism is not defined by borders but by the bonds of shared values. A patriotic spirit is one that embraces both the heritage and the hope of a nation. Patriotism is the voice that calls us to serve and the hand that reaches out to help. Patriotism is standing up for what makes a country worth loving. Patriotism is the quiet pride of those who build, create, and care for their community. A patriot sees beyond the present to the potential future of their nation. Patriotism is the recognition that our nation's strength lies in its people's resilience. Patriotism means loving your country enough to want it to be just and fair for all. True patriotism is a commitment to making our nation a better place for the next generation. Patriotism is the unwavering belief in the promise of one's country. Patriotism is not a flag, it's the love and dedication that keeps it flying. Patriotism is found in the quiet acts of kindness and the bold acts of justice. To be a patriot is to understand that freedom is a responsibility. Patriotism is the strength to stand for your country's values even in times of trial. True patriotism is found in the stories we share and the dreams we dare. Patriotism is the thread that weaves together the fabric of our nation. Patriotism is when the welfare of the nation takes precedence over individual gain. Patriotism is the light that guides us through our nation's darkest hours. Patriotism means cherishing the liberty and justice that define our nation. Patriotism is the unity that withstands the storms of division. Patriotism is the belief that we can always improve and the will to make it so. True patriotism inspires us to see the best in our country and work towards it. Patriotism is the respect for our nation's past and the dedication to its future. Patriotism is an active commitment to the ideals of democracy and freedom. To be patriotic is to find strength in diversity and unity in purpose. Patriotism is the love for our country that inspires us to act with integrity. Patriotism means taking pride in your nation's achievements and responsibility for its failures. Patriotism is the promise we make to our fellow citizens to build a better future. Patriotism is the joy in our successes and the resolve in our challenges.